So I think what we should start with is just start to talk about, a pulse check of where user experience is today in August, end of August 2025, and just the articles that have been put out by other professionals within the industry, and just what's happened. I believe since about the downfall or this maturation that's happened within our industry around 2022.
Yeah.
What we saw was a spike in hiring prior to that. And because of our maturation and possibly just where we are in the market, there was a massive layoffs that happened within the FANG group, and then other companies proceeded. So what you saw was UXers, product designers, product managers, and developers losing their jobs for the first time because of this almost broad stroke that happened over the tech field.
Yeah, I mean, it echoes kind of the whole reason that they brought in UX professionals and product designers, and the reason that they all scaled up to begin with, right? And tried to turn their companies into quote unquote big tech companies, right? And so it's kind of like this, we're on the mirror end of it where they follow, they're all conformist, and they all conformed initially to what they thought was the trend of scaling up, building product teams, doing the things that they thought would bring them success. And now they're doing the same thing. They're mirroring with the anti-DEI type stuff, the layoffs, what else have they done? They've done a whole bunch of other, moving more outside of, they'd gone all brought in-house, they'd all built their teams up in-house, and now they're going to probably move back to consultation models as well.
I think so. I think the whole consulting model is making a comeback.
Totally.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up as well is because of this spike in fractional jobs, right? The contractor or the gig economy, right? Hiring contractors for a limited amount of time, not taking a risk, hiring someone full-time with benefits, and then having to show them out through a PIP. But now just having that flexibility of hiring people part-time and on an as-needed basis.
Totally. It's also interesting because there's also like an interesting echo of, remember everybody a couple of years ago, they were all very interested in moving to cloud and how important cloud was. And so to accomplish moving to cloud, they augmented their teams. And now what are we seeing? We're seeing the same thing happening with AI, where they think they can bring in AI and they can put AI into all of their products and features, and I'll just automatically just solve all problems. and instead of thinking, oh no, there's human beings and brains and people that you need in your organization to integrate and to make things work. And instead they are just falling down this magical rabbit hole.
I don't know how magical that rabbit hole is. I don't really want to go down it. It feels slimy and sloppy.
Yeah.
What I think too is like this whole AI phenomenon of like, oh my God, look what we're doing for the first time. We've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
It just was called machine learning, right? And us building models based on data that we were collecting. And then similar to what you would, if anybody remembers Y malls, you may also like, that comes from, structures, e-commerce structures like Amazon, where they took data based on behavior that they were tracking on their websites. And then through that machine learning suggested, hey, you might like these other additional 3 products based on your behavior, similar to other people who've been using this platform as well. That's AI.
Yeah.
That's machine learning.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not a surprise that we're also reading several articles where people are suddenly like big companies are starting to realize the investment that they've put in purchasing these AI products is now not paying out.
Yeah.
And it's not scaling because of the data centers. And the article you and I talked about the other day about the water, the amount of water we're going to need, and how we could end up losing all of the water in the Midwest. And we're not talking about any type of water. We're talking about fresh drinking water that human beings, aka users or customers,
Right.
that will be buying products or using products need to live. Um, like how much you're going to need those to cool your data centers and to cool down all these AI software and services that people are going to need. So like, what are we doing here? Like, we're not, clearly there wasn't a holistic thought as to how to put all of this together.
Yeah, I want to build on that, but actually separate that from just what's happening to our physical environment back to strategy,
Yes.
right? So a company's success is based on strategy, right? Do you have a strategic way of building products? What I've noticed, and I've been in Nashville for about 2 years, and I am seeing the lack of product strategy within the company's frames, the company's solutioning when it comes to their business outcomes. I don't know if it's just my limited time here, but I do feel like a unicorn when talking about UX and product practices. But when I do see someone across the room in some of my networking events that speaks the same language, we just completely connect.
Totally.
And so with that, there is a lack of strategy as well when it comes to where does UX fit in the product life cycle? How about the software development life cycle? Have you guys heard of those? I'm sure you have. Those, where does the design team, the UX team, the product design team, where do we fit? I feel like like these are just ways of describing who we are because we haven't even given that a full strategic thought,
I
right?
mean, yeah, I mean, I agree. Usually UX is right. They usually staff development first, and they usually start thinking of development first. And I feel like UX and design tend to be the last thing that they think about. And I think that typically is because of the fact that most leaders and most leaders, most business people that don't fully understand what user experience is or what design is, or even technology people, like what they believe is that is the very last, that's the very last train that's exiting the tunnel or whatever, um, versus understanding like, no, that's what you need to begin because of the strategy, because you need to know, because you need to validate whether you should even be building the product to begin with, right? Um, it's funny. So we were talking about that article that you sent earlier about, it was talking about agile teams and small product teams and the whole fail fast and learn.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a disagreement about what MVP is. Like, no one has fully defined that. The folks on the years ago, I remember the folks on the UX podcast, they talked about uh, they had an episode that was titled I don't want a skateboard, I want a car, because it was talking about that whole, there's this for folks that might not know or might not know it, there is this whole trend of showing a skateboard that would turn into a car, and it would be like a skateboard, and then it would be a scooter, and then it would be a motorcycle, and then it would be a car. And the guys at UX Podcast, Parox Ekbom, drew this awesome illustration that I use all the time, where it was like, no, it's not like this. It's, you want a car, and then you test because the car should be your MVP. If you want to build a car, the car is your MVP. But then when you have the car out, he gave the example of it like driving in the rain, and then you go, oh, the car needs a roof. And that's the point of an MVP. It should be the minimal viable product that actually works. It's not small pieces of a completely separate, unrelated product. And I feel like too often that became part of so there's like this fine split between was talked about in the article about moving fast and being able to like iterate and learn versus being able to work and build and create a whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
I want to connect back to what you were talking about with leadership at a company and how that product vision is actually would come to fruition. Now, what we usually have in the C-suite are people who are operations based, and this is just kind of what I'm starting to realize as I'm talking to hundreds of people a month when I am networking in the city, and that type of linear thinking works at most companies, right? I was just talking to a fractional chief data officer that I met at one of the events that I attended, and he mentioned this as well, that these types of operations folks are, there because they can, move the needle 3 to 5% every year, which is great. That's what
yeah,
a company wants.
yeah,
Very small improvements that are laddering up over time.
yeah,
This is annually. And so those are people that kind of just move the needle very subtly, but there is always like some significant change. But people like designers, engineers, product managers, right? These visionaries. Think of Steve Jobs and how many times he's been, walked out, kicked out of, places that, that just didn't want that type of thinking. And I believe it's because of this kind of visionary thinking that the operational type folks that can move the needle 3 to 5% per year just could not comprehend or be very uncomfortable with, because that requires change. And I think that's where I'd like to, because of the goal of this podcast, is show how can we create success within your company by bringing UX strategy to the beginning of your product lifecycle, is that we need more of that thinking on the front end. So let's say you have an existing product. Can you do that then? Yes, of course you can. There can be a visionary type team that can start to iterate on not just feature factory items, but things that are completely brand new. Where does that data come from? It comes from the users that are using your product, the employees that are using your product. You have it. It's a gold mine, and it's usually in a suggestion box or a little feedback tool on your website that nobody hardly looks at.
yeah, yes, and there can be, we can also be like, the blunt truth is, if you're there's kind of a double-edged sword to hiring designers and visionary people and good product people and good UX people. There's a real double-edged sword. The let's talk about the positive aspect. Well, I'm going to say the negative aspects first. We can be pains in the ass. We're going to ask why a lot. We're going to question your decisions. We're going to bring you real data from human beings that we've talked to or that we've interviewed or that we've done tests with, right? Like, we're going to bring this information that may contradict what you just told the board that you were going to do, or what was promised for quarter blah 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 blah, right? That's the negative side. The positive side is we're not bullshitting you, right? Like, we're the people that are going to come and we're going to like bring the receipts and we're going to help you to de-risk your products.
Well, we're not going to say yes just because.
We're not going to say, we're not yes men. We're not in the mode of just agreeing to agree. We're coming in to like help back your decisions with data And we're actually, what we're trying to do, if we're doing it right, we're trying to help you avoid landmines that'll blow up your ship,
Yeah.
right? I continued to mix metaphors this whole podcast so far. So
It's keeping people on their toes. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's I'm just thinking about the leadership I used to work with, and just like the risk that you have to take when you are a visionary type person in a business realm. Sometimes if you've worked there for a long time, that is risky.
Yeah.
You could be risking your entire career, right? And this is where I think it really changes for companies. You don't need to feel that risk. Here's why. You can hire people like Brian and like myself, that we have teams of people that work for us on ways to minimize that risk, because we're not pulling things out of thin air.
Right.
Everything's backed by data and by your end users. So we're almost going to be creating a nearly flawless approach to different concepts. And so you don't have to be thinking, hey, I'm risking my career for this. Instead, you can say that 52 users over the span of 2 years have suggested this redesign. So with that type of data, this is concrete evidence that there is a base of users that needs this change within your product. And not only would that be great news, right, that you just have a data-backed design decision. On top of that, as the design team, we can create a prototype with gray boxes that can validate that this is something that really needs to be either a feature or a change within your workflow. So not only do you have suggestions from that data-backed decision, but then you have a prototype that's being tested by actual people who are using your product. I mean, that to me is just brilliant, genius. This is where your whole company would change if you start to think that you bring in people that are strategic, that are visionaries, and that have design backgrounds into your company.
Yeah, I agree. And I think about the fact that I don't know about you, Eve, but like my best working experiences that I've had, uh, there's there's a thing, there's such a thing as positive conflict. Like I love one of the companies I'm working with now is fantastic, and we've had really good positive conflict. When I worked at Allstate, there was good positive conflict there. When I mean positive conflict, what I'm talking about is there's a clip that's gone viral recently, and it's James Gunn who directed the new Superman movie with the actor playing Superman. And at one point, they're going through, and it's a behind the scenes clip, and they're going through understanding what the character's motivation is.
Yeah.
He's explaining it over the intercom, and the actor does not get it and needs to come back and come back behind the scene, and they talk and they hash it out and they get it. And then they're like, great. And then they get what they want out of it. And both of them talked about how that was the best experience that they'd ever had on a film, how they'd ever had with a director and an actor working together. Because both of them gave a shit and both of them cared, and both of them were having that to come to an understanding and then get to the solution. And you can engage that stakeholders, a really good stakeholder, a really good CEO or CXO or and a UX designer or any type of UX practitioner. If you can engage in that positive conflict with them, with your developers, with your product teams, like magic can come out of that. And that's where, when you're talking about with prototyping or doing usability studies or going and doing research, sometimes you don't know the answers, right? And that, doing the research and doing the studies, that's where you get the answers. You just then have to be receptive
Right.
to what those answers are and not be so locked into a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think with that, if you have things that you want to discuss, we want to talk to you about it. Anything that's happening within the realm of tech, within your company, within your startup, within maybe your own business. If you're managing software, we'd love to chat with you and figure out what's happening and how we can help. Because as you probably assumed, Brian and I are consulting actively and just looking to bring more product goodness into this world.
Yeah. And sometimes that starts with part of the whole premise of this podcast is starting with the diagnosis, is starting with the thought of like, so, well, something's gone wrong. How do we figure out what's gone wrong? And probably if you're watching this and if you're working, if you have a small startup or a small idea or a company that's struggling, you might be like, well, why isn't this happening? Or what is my missing thing? That's part of the reason why you would hire us as consultants.
Absolutely. Or a big idea, because we've definitely, as Brian mentioned, working at Fortune 500 companies like Allstate, Nielsen Media, for PepsiCo, just other types of businesses, even paychecks that need like a big idea to be either cracked open or solved. We definitely are very comfortable in those situations as well.
Yeah, ambiguity is our friend.
It depends. What are we going to talk about next week?
Next week, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn, and we're going to be addressing some of the issues that we've noticed with LinkedIn. Why do we have to enter our LinkedIn link when we apply for jobs on LinkedIn?
Yes, I have a gripe about LinkedIn. I go to networking events on a weekly basis. And what do we want to do? Let's connect on LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn, let's connect. How do you do that? You have to click into a search field at the top to reveal the QR code that you have to click again for you to see the screen for QR code. Why? Why are you doing this? It should be a one click, or as soon as I log into LinkedIn, there should just be some immediacy that you're in some space or event where networking is happening. And that should be an autopilot thing. Anyway, I'll stop right there. We have more to talk about later.
Yeah. Find out next week on UX Murder Mystery.
Like, subscribe, and follow, or become our next victim of bad UX.
UX Murder Mystery is a joint production of Eve, User Experience Design Agency, and CrowleyUX, where systems meet stories. It's hosted by Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Edited by Kelsey Smith. Intro animation and logo design by Brian J. Crowley. Music is by Nicolas Lee. You can follow us at UX Murder Mystery. You can email us at questions@uxmurdermystery.com. UX Murder Mystery is a copyright 2025, Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Thanks for listening.